Hi, welcome back to Bog's Delights. Today I'm going to be playing this co-opportunistic game of cannibalistic mayhem called Zimby Mojo. This one comes from Devious Weasel Games, designer Jim Felly, who brought us The Shadows of Malice. This one's going to play 1 to 8, so it's got a really good broad player count. I'm going to demonstrate the one player game. It only loses a little bit of celerity to the multiplayer game. This one has high celerity. It's very similar. There's one thing that's different, and I'll talk about that when we come to it, because for now you're going to want to know how to play this game. We're a shaman and we have a king. Our aim is to defeat that king. We're going to kill him, we're going to steal his crown, and we're going to bring it back to our home tribe. If you're playing multiplayer, then the objective's the same, but you're all working together to kill the king, steal his crown, but there's only one winner, and that's the player who brings the crown back to their home village. But you have to cooperate in order to get the king killed. So, right? So there's where the difference comes in. At your disposal are tribes of Zimbies. I'm going to be playing green, and your Zimbies can move around in columns, and more columns of Zimbies make them stronger, and they're going to be moving around this kind of Pac-Man-like board. I feel that perhaps even these yellow ones make you think of Pac-Man. And the way everything moves around, there's going to be some bots, some AI that's controlling some of the bad guys, the king and his thugs. These are his thugs. And they kind of wander around like the ghosts in Pac-Man, and we've got to try and avoid them, lay traps, obstacles in their way in order to try and achieve our objective. When you're playing the multiplayer game, the cooperation comes from building bigger columns that become stronger with your opponents. In the solitaire game you've got to do this alone, so there's a few minor tweaks to the rules just to get the solitaire game working, and that's what I'm going to show you today. Let me finish getting set up quickly. These are the king's defenders, these dim-witted thugs, and they're going to be controlled by these footprints. So while the king's alive, they're going to be circling around these in a chamber, and then once the king's killed, they're going to spread out, and then they're going to start searching for the shamans. These are thickets and vines. They're obstacles that are going to be standing in our way. Obstacles are interesting. We can add more obstacles to the board. I might be able to show you that. But they kind of have this A and B side. So at the beginning of each turn, A's flip to B, and then the next turn B's disappear. So they only stay around for a couple of turns, but they've got that like neat little mechanism to age them on the board. We have these elemental seals. These are what lock the king's chamber. Just place them however you wish, randomly, or select where they go. You'll understand it doesn't actually matter. They perform no functional effect, these individual icons, but we've got these seals here that you need to, so those are the wards, these are the seals. You randomise these and place them in each of these spots here, and the aim, before we can get to the king, we need to go and reveal one of these seals, unlock it, and whichever one it matches here disappears from the board, and therefore we randomly find an entrance to the king's chamber, if you like, or the sanctum, I think they call it. We've also got 8 rituals, and these are going to be randomised. We're only going to use 4 during the game. So we place 4 on the board, and these represent the king's abilities. The king's going to move around and trigger one of these rituals, and that will have some generic effect on the board. Generally something bad for the shamans. As far as setting up the player boards, each player has a tribal board, and there's a gateway onto the main board. There's 8 entrances onto the main board, so you can just choose whichever other entrance you want. Do it randomly if you wish. We start with 6 Zimbies active, and then these are Mojo Tokens. Mojo is kind of like our energy. This is the force we exert via our Zimbies to control them and what they do. So we've got 4 here, and then we've got some cards. Alright, there's different rituals. And in the top left here is a Mojo icon. Anything with a red dot in it we're going to remove. There's a huge stack that are only used in the multiplayer game, so we can get rid of those. We're going to shuffle this deck, and then we're going to deal off 17. We're going to deal 6 of those 17, to us as a starting player, which means 11 remains in the deck. And 11 ends up being our timer. And we're going to be drawing one of these every turn, or every round if you like. And if that deck empties, then we lose the game. So we've got 11 rounds to try and kill the king, take his crown, bring it back to our tribal board. Okay? Because you're playing solitaire, you can play with these face up. And these scrolls, this is the scroll library, there's basically 3 types. I've only got 2 showing here. This is an incantation. If we send one of our Zimbies to make this incantation, it puts him out of action and he's kind of performing this incantation on our tribal board. So he's doing his thing. Then we've got these witcheries here. Witcheries are channeled through our Zimbies. So these Zimbies that are on the board will effectively be, and I think the range is 3. Yeah, the range is 3 for these witcheries, and they can kind of shoot these spells, if you like, up and down the board. And then we've got, just like there with rituals, these are like instants that happen and get discarded straight away. Okay, we'll probably see some of those coming in as we get through the game. And there's also some zombies here. These are kind of our defensive measures. We can make them wander around the board holding up the thugs. And our scrolls are also ways to manipulate what's going on the board and hold up the thugs and hopefully clear a pathway back from the sanctum to our tribal board. We've got some dice. There is a little bit of randomization going on, primarily just to select different areas of the map. This tends to be, everything's kind of symmetrical here, 4 quadrants, so you've got a D4 here. So if you want to select these ones here, these yellow starbursts here, they're like portals. So if you want to teleport and you want to pick a random portal, you roll the die. Okay, now how you randomise is up to you. So if you say you need to pick a random portal, you just number them in your head, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4, however you feel comfortable. Jim always does it 1, 2, 3, 4 like this. So if I roll and I get 4, that would be 1, 2, 3, it'll be this portal up here. Alright, so that's how these dice are used to randomly select things. We got some D6s also. They're going to be used during combat. So when we're attacking the king, when we're attacking the thugs, and indeed in the multiplayer game attacking each other, then you're going to be using dice, adding the brutality of your Zimbies and your thugs or your king, or indeed zombies, to the die roll and trying to get a score that will allow you to overcome what's called their vitality. And there's a card here to describe the stats of each kind of creature. So the Zimby has brutality 1, a zombie 2, a thug 3, and vitality 1, 3, 2, and king 4. Okay, we'll learn about it once we get playing. There's an order of events. So this is your player order, and it also tells you how you can spend your mojo, your energy here, to get things working, get your mojo working. The general order of events: on the first turn we're going to skip refresh and king's turn. We always start with the shaman's turn, a player turn. So the king's not moving, he's not doing anything until we start getting busy. So let's start there, and we'll start spending our mojo, get things working on the board. So let's start by getting some Zimbies moving. Now I can form a column of Zimbies. Every one of these is a creature. If I combine 2 Zimbies into a column, that becomes a single creature called a Zimby column. And you can create a column of up to 3 Zimbies. If you're playing multiplayer, you can have up to 3 Zimbies of each tribe, and you can have up to 3 tribes in a column. Alright, so the maximum you're going to have here is 9 Zimbies in a column. Alright, we're playing solo, so we're going to stick with up to 3. Now the thing is, more Zimbies in a column become more burdenful. 2 or fewer Zimbies in a column are cheaper to move around. Now remember, our objective is to get to the king. To get to the king, we need to unlock these elemental wards, and to unlock the elemental wards we need to get to these seals. We don't know which seal corresponds to which ward, but that's going to be our first objective. Find an entrance to the king's inner sanctum. And there's 2 ways onto the board. We can either move, so remember, I can spend mojo. I've got 4 mojo here. I can spend 1 mojo to move a column of 2 Zimbies. I can go back to my reference here, it's got it on here, creature movement, 2 or fewer Zimbies, 4 tiles for 1 mojo. So I could wander in 1, 2, 3, 4, something like that. The other way of doing it is to teleport in using one of these teleports. I can use 1 mojo, and again I can take 1 Zimby, 2 Zimbies or 3 Zimbies. I'm going to take 2, and actually in fact this is going to be what I'm going to do. I'm going to teleport to one of these portals. Now it's random, it's completely random where you teleport to from your tribal board, alright? So you have to roll the d4. I've got a dice box here to help me, and let's say 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll roll a d4 and this will tell us where we're going. It's a 1, so I'm going to teleport into here for my 1 mojo. There's another way to create mojo, alright? You've only got 4 to start the game, but your Zimbos also generate mojo. You can spend or deplete 1 Zimby to create 1 mojo. Okay, and if you're a bit more drastic, if you're desperate, you can actually cannibalise, eat one of these guys for 2 mojo, and that puts them in the far shore, basically out of play. Alright. For 3 mojo, I can take another action, which is to summon a Zimby. He comes into play, depleted, to my tribal board. And I can also spend mojo to cast these scrolls. So this witchery here, this smell of meat, would cost 3. Pathfinder, this incantation, would cost 1. Always look at your incantations because you never know what they do. It's this one says columns containing target shaman Zimbies. Ignore all effects of blood thickets, blood vines, deadly vines, entangling vines and patches of darkness on the tile they belong. These are all those obstacles. And that's a really useful incantation to cast on myself. I'm going to leave it for now. I think I'm going to create another 2 Zimby column, and I want to spend 1 mojo to teleport it onto the board, but I want to move this one out first because if he accidentally pops in here, this one's going to pop back. So let's spend 1 mojo first to move this one. For 1 mojo we can move a 2 column 4 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's go this way. Then I'm going to spend my last mojo to teleport him into the board. Let's see where he goes. It's a 2. So using our existing system of 1, 2, 3, 4, that would pop this column here. Okay, that's my turn over. I've got no mojo left. So now it's the thug's turn. And with the thugs, each one of these thugs moves independently. We'll start with him. Doesn't matter which one we start with, really. It's up to you. So let's always start here and go clockwise. You just roll a d6 for each one of these thugs. So this one moves 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 puts in here. They've incidentally created a column, but they'll break the column just by moving again. So the next one, a 5, so he goes here. Then we'll move this one. That's a 1, and then we'll move this one. Remember, they're following these red footprints, so they're all just trotting around and around, okay, guarding that king effectively. If we had any zombies, they'd now move. We don't have any, and now we do wrap up. Wrap up basically says obstacles do damage. We figure out if you're playing multiplayer, whoever's got the most active Zimbies would become first player for next time. So you can kind of manipulate whether you want to be first or not first by spending your Zimbies if you want to. And then you would discard down to 6 cards. You can only ever have 6 scrolls in your hand at a time. Now we could begin turn 2, and on turn 2 we go through the refresh phase. So all depleted Zimbies and Mojo Tokens get activated. We can spend them again. Any obstacles on the board will get flipped to their B side, or if they're on the B side they'll disappear. Now these starting ones, they stay until the king is killed. And then every shaman draws a card. So we're going to draw our decks now down to 10 cards. And we managed to get brutal cudgels. Okay. Next in order of events is the king's turn. So now the king's going to move. As long as he's on this central spot, this is called the blood mist, then he's going to move to one of these 4 spots and activate one of these rituals. So we're going to determine just randomly which one he goes to using a 1d4. So again we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4 like so. I rolled a 1, so he's going to move up to this spot. This one's not revealed, so we're going to flip it and see what it does. Okay, you have to refer to the rule book for this one, but this is called a Ritual of Exhaustion. It says here, the king weakens the shamans by draining their mojo. Roll X equals 2d2. All shamans must deplete X many of their mojo tokens. No mojo may be drawn from depleted tokens until they are reactivated. Okay, so a D2 is basically a 1 or a 2. So we can just use a D6. 1 to 3 is 1, 4 to 5 is 6, and we're going to roll it twice. So it's 2d2. Okay, so that's a 1 and a 2, so that's 3. So we're going to lose 3 mojo. Not helpful. We've only got 4 for this turn. These thugs didn't move in a particularly helpful way. We've got some Zimbys here who could actually run through this channel up to here. These ones can't run around without engaging with this thug because we're going to move through its combat zone. Any adjacent squares is its combat zone and we'll have to do battle. Not necessarily a bad thing, we can use some of our cards to help us. We could run around this way, but again this thug is guarding both these channels, and there's also this blood vine in the way. And what blood vines do is they block line of sight. If any creature entering here, so our column of Zimbys, will suffer 1d3 wound, and if you're stuck there during wrap up you'll get another 1d3 wounds. And we could do something like the incantation, columns containing the target shaman's Zimbys, that's ourselves. Ignore all the effects of blood thickets, blood vines. Yeah, still not very helpful. This is tough. All in awkward positions. Alright, I'll tell you what we'll do, is we'll move this column up. Let's spend 2 mojo. 1, 2. And a 2 column can move 4 spaces for every 1 mojo we spend. So we can move 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think I will cast that ritual. So it's going to cost 1 mojo and 1 chanting Zimby, and that'll end my turn. Okay, let's move these thugs. So we'll start with this. Let's start with this one. See where it goes. It's a 3. 1, 2, 3. And this one. In fact, we'll go back this way. Let's go him next. That's a 4. And him is also a 4. And then this one, a 5. Okay. Thugs attack. They're not adjacent to anyone. They're not attacking. We've got no zombies, so it's wrap up, which means we're going to have to discard down to 6 cards. Well, this card's not in our hand anymore, so it goes up here. He's actually in the village doing his incantation. We'll wrap up here. Join me next time as we head into round 3.